Why did the Confederacy lose the American Civil War? Not just on battlefields like Gettysburg and Vicksburg, but in shipyards, treasuries, rail depots, foreign ministries, and in the choices enslaved people made to seize freedom. Today, using primary sources from the Library of Congress and U.S. National Park Service, plus professional history, organizations like the American Battlefield Trust will break down 20 hard facts behind Confederate defeat. Stay to the end for what the loss meant immediately for the nation. At war's outset, the Union held decisive structural advantages: more people, deeper capital markets, larger industry, and a navy that could blockade southern ports. The Confederacy gambled that cotton would force Britain or France to intervene. It didn't. By 1863 to 1864, emancipation and mass black enlistment further tilted manpower and diplomacy. Our 20 facts trace these forces, from demographics and economics to strategy, leadership, and the choices of ordinary people, that made Confederate defeat likely and then inevitable. 20 facts on why the Confederacy lost. Fact 1. The Union's population edge was overwhelming. The Union had 18.5 to 23 million people versus the Confederacy's 9 million, of whom 3.54 million were enslaved, a population the South refused to arm as citizens. That translated to 3.5 million Northern males of military age versus 1 million in the South. Wars of attrition reward depth. The North had it. Fact 2. Industrial capacity and finance favored the North. The Union's industrial economy scaled up wartime production and finance. The South's agricultural base couldn't match output of arms, rails, ships, and credit. Even bank specie and deposits skewed north, 234 M's in the Union versus $74 in the Confederacy. Fact 3. The Union blockade choked Southern trade. Winfield Scott's Anaconda Plan and an expanding U.S. Navy increasingly cut off Confederate ports. Cotton exports dropped drastically. Overall trade volumes collapsed from pre-war norms, starving the Confederacy of hard currency and supplies. Fact 4. Blockade running helped but couldn't save the economy. Thousands of ships slipped through, yet total volume remained a far cry from pre-war levels. High-value cargoes couldn't replace lost bulk trade. The lifeline was real, but too thin to sustain a nation at war. Fact 5. Confederate railroads deteriorated under stress. Rail was the war's bloodstream. The South began with fewer miles of track, fewer locomotive works, and fragmented gauges. Under blockade and overuse, rails and rolling stock wore out faster than the South could replace them, crippling logistics. Fact 6. Inflation and supply crises eroded Confederate will. Shortages and spiraling prices hit soldiers' families and cities hard, triggering bread riots and desertion pressures. Letters in LOC collections note inflation's grind and the extraordinary sacrifices civilians made to keep armies in the field. Fact 7. Emancipation was a war measure that bled the South and strengthened the North. Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation deprived the Confederacy of enslaved labor as people fled to Union lines and discouraged European intervention, while opening the door to black enlistment. Fact 8. Nearly 10% of the Union Army were African American soldiers. By war's end, 180,000 black soldiers served in the Union Army, about 10%, decisively augmenting Northern manpower and morale while undermining enslavers' control. Fact 9. Border states tilted the balance to the Union. Slaveholding border states largely stayed in, or were held to, the Union. 275,000 white men of military age from these states fought for the Union versus $71,000 for the Confederacy. Geography, industry, and manpower from these states were strategic gifts to the North. Fact 10. The Confederacy's states' rights politics hobbled centralization. Rich scholarship shows Confederate leaders struggled to build a centralized war state, clashing with governors over troops, taxes, and conscription. That ideological resistance to federal power made sustaining a total war effort far harder than in the Union. Fact 11. The Union adapted to hard war. The Confederacy had less to burn. By 1864, Grant directed campaigns to destroy Southern food, industry, and transport, compounding scarcity already driven by blockade and battlefield losses. The South's thinner industrial base meant less resilience under such pressure. Fact 12. The Mississippi River was lost. The Confederacy was split. The Union's riverine naval campaigns culminating in Vicksburg, 1863, severed the trans-Mississippi West. With the river in Union hands, moving men and material across the Confederacy became far more difficult. Fact 13. No foreign recognition, diplomatic isolation. Despite hopes for King Cotton diplomacy, Britain and France stayed officially neutral. Emancipation further cooled intervention. Without recognition or alliance, the Confederacy lacked loans, ships, and the legitimacy to break the blockade. Fact 14. Strategic defeats in the West mattered as much as the East. Strategic defeats in the West mattered as much as the East. While Lee fought in Virginia, Union armies captured key nodes in Tennessee, along the rivers, and into Georgia, unraveling Confederate logistics and morale away from the famous Eastern Theater headlines. Fact 15. Command decisions, Grant's operational grind versus Lee's attrition. Grant accepted the arithmetic of attrition and kept pressing across multiple fronts. Lee's offensive gambles, Maryland 1862, Pennsylvania 1863, failed to deliver decisive political outcomes and bled irreplaceable manpower. Fact 16. Confederate morale fractured under class resentment and desertion. Policies like the 20-slave exemption bred anger among poorer whites, who bore the brunt of fighting while elites kept labor at home. Desertion and localism undercut long campaigns. Fact 17. Enslaved people's resistance actively undermined the Confederacy. Flight to Union lines, intelligence to federal troops, labor slowdowns, and the refusal to sustain plantation production all chipped away at the Confederate war economy and social order, accelerating the collapse of slavery from within. Fact 18. Naval power and river flotillas multiplied northern advantages. Blue water ships, the Union's brown water navy seized rivers, supported sieges, and cut Confederate interior lines, an operational realm where the South couldn't match shipbuilding or industrial throughput. Fact 19. Most major fighting happened in the South. Cumulative destruction was greater there. Because battlefields were overwhelmingly on Southern soil, farms, rails, towns, and depots suffered repeated damage. The North absorbed the war economically. The South suffered it physically, reducing productive capacity and deepening shortages. On Fact 20. By spring 1865, Confederate defeat was total, military and institutional. Appomattox, APR 9, 1865, was the symbolic capstone, but surrenders continued across scattered commands into the summer, demonstrating collapse at every level: army, economy, and government. What the loss meant. Confederate defeat preserved the United States and ultimately led to the 13th Amendment and the legal death of slavery, though equality's long struggle was far from over. The South emerged economically shattered, with ruined infrastructure and a transformed labor system as Reconstruction began. Which of these 20 reasons do you think was the most decisive factor in the Confederacy's defeat, and why? Like what you saw? Smash the like button, subscribe for more epic deep dives, and hit that bell to never miss a story.